So, good morning, everyone. Let's kick off together day 2 of our Treasury conference. I hope you had an amazing evening. You could recap a bit of the learnings that you had yesterday during a couple of glasses of wine or beer or whatever you had. So I hope you enjoyed the evening, and now we're looking forward to an exciting day that we're having on our agenda today. Before we do that though, let's have a quick recap of yesterday. I think overall we can summarize from a functional topic, we learned a lot. We learned about SAP's vision, how the role of AI looks like. We learned how Carl Zeiss will do cash prediction with SAC, working capital optimization with Thalia at Bridgestone, commodity risk management at Volkswagen, FX management at DSV, treasury transformation at Action, and the impact of the treasury core model at Sanofi during the carve-out. So a lot of topics. We will continue like that. But I didn't mention, I think we also had a lot of fun. I hope you had great conversations in our Treasury community, and we can continue with that today. One important housekeeping note, as always, don't forget about the Treasuropoly. Don't forget about the new app that you need to use. There's still nice prizes to win. We will actually announce them before the last session. So just make sure that until you have scanned as much as you can and got all the challenges in the app. Having said that, let's have a quick look at today's agenda. It is full as well. We have now 2 exciting sessions here in that room, and then very importantly, we have that special concept of the expert forums happening. The expert forums are always 2 sessions in parallel, so you can really decide which topic interests you most and get a bit of deeper exchange with the experts. One of them is taking place in this room. This is the left column on the page. And the other one is taking place in level 1. I know sometimes I confuse up and down, like yesterday evening, but it's this time really upstairs in level 1. So you will find the second right-hand side sessions in level 1. So I would say, having said that and having had a brief glimpse on the agenda, let's kick it off with our very first session of the day. And I'm very excited to announce a topic that we haven't seen that much yesterday, which nevertheless is a topic that, at least in my customer and partner conversations, is coming up a lot. Potentially not only because SAP has a lot of innovation in that area, but also because there's a lot of value creation potential behind. What I'm talking about is in-house banking, and that's where I'm very glad to have TUI here today, who will explain us how their in-house banking implementation looks like. They have a broad scope implemented of that product, but I'm not saying too much now, and hand over to TUI and PwC, to Benjamin Deutsch, Head of Treasury at TUI Business Services, and Peter Reipen, Lead Partner Corporate Treasury at PwC. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. Pleasure to be here in the morning. Hope you feel energized after maybe a long night yesterday. If not, you can now lean back. This is probably the presentation with the nice vacation slides. A lot of nice pictures. You can dream about your next holiday. But meanwhile, we explain a little bit about in-house banking. Thank you for the introduction, Julia. I then keep it short. Peter Reipen, partner with PwC and head of our treasury practice. More than happy to share this stage with Benjamin. You introduce yourself.
Yeah, good morning from my side as well. So happy to be here. Thanks for having me. And yeah, thanks for giving me the chance to really talk about a project that is important for me. And I don't know why this is not showing on the screen. Okay, good, thanks. So this is a project. Let's go back maybe one slide. The implementation of an SAP in-house bank at TUI. That is something that is, like I said, really important to me. And like Peter introduced myself, so I'm Benjamin Deutsch, the head of treasury at TBS. Or TUI Business Services, and together with PwC, we have the chance. Thank you. We have the chance to present this project to you. Before we go, let's have a brief look at the agenda. So what we'd like to do, of course, we give you an introduction into TUI Group, just to give you a glimpse of what we are doing and an impression of what we are handling. Then we have, let's say, the call for action and change. So the why are we doing this project? Afterwards, we're having a look at the project objectives and also the structure. Afterwards, we're looking into the project approach and maybe success factors that we think is worthwhile sharing. And then maybe if we have time in the end, we're going to have a brief look at, let's say, the future roadmap and what's going beyond. From this agenda, you can see that I'm not going to talk about a lot about the technology, but more or less like how do we set up this project and how do we do this. And yeah, let's get started. So as you might imagine, TUI is a travel and leisure industry company. And yeah, just maybe a few factors. We are a global group headquartered in Hanover in Germany. Last year we had a revenue of 20.7 billion euros, of which we then made nearly a billion EBIT. So you see we have to sell a lot of, let's say, trips to make our money. To give you a little bit of, let's say, perspective, we have 16 cruise ships. Actually, it's 17. So the latest ship, my ship 7, just embarked from the shipyard last week and was christened in the port of Kiel at the weekend. We own over 400 hotels globally. We also have a considerable airline. We have more than 130 aircraft in our group. And then last but not least, we have 1,200 travel agencies. So for the customers who want to have a personal service. This being said, just to give you also again a glimpse of what we are doing. So wherever you can make holiday or wherever you can think of going to, TUI is present. We are serving more than 180 destinations worldwide. And unfortunately, I have to say, our IT landscape is quite as dispersed as our destinations that we serve. And that is the reason for why we are doing this project and why we have the call for action. So it's pretty clear when you look at this picture. So this is just a brief outlook on, let's say, our IT landscape. And you can see here in the middle that we have quite a few SAP systems in place, but also non-SAP systems we have quite a lot of. Just picking out one, this is the so-called SAP Steward system. That is just the name that we gave it. This is covering about 70% of TUI's global payments volume. Is connected via Finastra to the SWIFT network. And but as you can see, we have all, let's say, other SAP products and also non-SAP products that are connected differently. And so with this, let's say, dispersed and let's say unintegrated systems landscape, what we do have is that we have an, let's say, disjointed processes, we have unintegrated systems landscape, and yeah, obviously this leads to a couple of problems. First of all, we think that our processes could be more efficient due to the fact that this is just too decentralized. We think that our banking fees could be lower than they are today. We think that, let's say, the centralized or the view on the centralized cash or cash flows could be better. I mean, it is there today, but actually not as automated and as smooth as it could be. Of course, with such a, let's say, organization, you have these, let's say, issues when it comes to security or compliance with regulatory requirements. You can handle them, but it's tougher to do. And then last but not least, we don't have any banking capabilities yet. So we are paying internally our, let's say, companies physically. So we send around quite a lot of money amongst our companies. This is why we are doing it. So we have this really, let's say, complex IT infrastructure. And then we were actually starting to think about, we want to change this, we want to do this better. And we were looking at, and this is now a little bit the wrong order, but anyhow, we were thinking about, let's say, different, let's say, aspects of what do we want to change. The first thing is, or it's actually not the first, but the third is business processes. So what we really want to achieve is that we have a standardized, centralized, and mostly automated processes in the group. So that is what we are aiming for. Now comes number one. The most important one is the strategic and IT infrastructure, of course. Again, we have this dispersed landscape. We want to harmonize this, centralize this, and actually also automate wherever we can. Manual processes just don't make fun. We want to address governance and control. So we have seen an increasing demand for cash visibility over the years, not only post-COVID, but also already before. In COVID, this was, of course, a really hot topic at TUI. We want to address bank accounts because this is also something that is really, let's say, a burden for us. We want to make our controls environment more manageable. It's kind of cumbersome today because with these, let's say, lots of processes and IT systems that you have, keeping control of it is quite, let's say, challenging. And then, of course, we want to address compliance and security also. Last but not least, we think that there is financial benefit in it for us. So just broadly speaking, we would say introducing or changing from this landscape will save us cost in terms of we have less bank accounts, less transactions, and also then less administration with these bank accounts. That's very important for us. So what did we do then? I mean, we had a problem and we wanted to change it, but we were actually then trying to look out for a provider who could serve this all. And yeah, in 2022, we went out to tender. So we conducted a software tender together with PwC. And the main criteria in the software tender was to address those issues that we had. So essentially, we need to cover the functions, cash, payments, in-house banking. This is what we wanted to go for. Of course, this makes sense. And but also very important for us because of the landscape that we have, that it is ERP agnostic and that we have the compatibility. Also, because we were only looking at in-house banking and payments factory at the time, we were thinking, okay, we need a product that is then scalable into a full TMS maybe later on. So this was also one of the main criteria that we had. And then, of course, if you want to do a project like this, you want to have a project team that does the implementation in a trustworthy and, let's say, in a way that you really can trust they will do it in time and on budget. So these were the factors that we had in the software tender. And then I think in late 2022, we conducted the presentations with the contestants that we had. We had a couple of them in the go. And then finally, I think this was then early 2023 or mid-year 2023, we then decided to go with SAP. And why is that? Of course, I mean, the functionalities requirements that we have, they are met with the solution that they provide. It aligns with our future IT roadmap. So we were thinking about, okay, how does this really fit into what we are planning to do? And we have to say here that we are not really quite decided where to go with our IT roadmap in the future, really. So we had to have something that is really fitting into this without, let's say, blocking us from, let's say, options in the future. Another really important point for us was then to have to say, why did we choose SAP over the others, is that we already had expertise in the business. So we were thinking, okay, the business users, they use SAP as of today quite regularly. And then we said, okay, it probably will increase the acceptance of the product in the house if the business users are already used to the software. Also, not to underestimate is the IT organization, because in our organization we have, let's say, quite some, let's say, resources in IT that are also already capable of maintaining and running an SAP product. And then also this is a, let's say, decision factor where you say, if you're now bringing in something else, like a new product or so, you have to really then care for the application support, and this will then, of course, add to the complexity in your IT organization. Competitive pricing, of course, was also important for us. Okay, and now having a look at the project objectives, and that was clearly, we want to implement a centralized payment factory. We're going to have, let's say, Pino and Kobo. We're not going for Robo or Kobo at the moment, so we keep it simpler, if you like. And also what we want to do is we want to establish an in-house bank to get rid of, let's say, of our intercompany cash settlement and really, let's say, do the settlement with the in-house bank and have this centralized. And then last but not least, objective, again, we want to lay the groundwork for something that we then can work off from, so that we can then scale this into a team as later on if we wish to. Okay, this is the landscape that we are introducing. And again, here you can see on the left-hand side, these are the different SAP systems that we have, but also non-SAP systems like RUX, that is kind of a system that we're using in the Benelux a lot, but also manual and other input. It all feeds into the, let's say, S/4HANA finance suite that we have here. We have decided to go for the advanced payment management, in-house banking, together with cash management, bank communication management, and also we chose to use the multi-bank connectivity that we are doing right now. So we're going away from our current Swift ServiceNet provider, Finastra, and moving on to multi-bank connectivity. All right, this is a brief glimpse at, let's say, the target landscape. And with this, I have Peter share a few thoughts on the project organization.
Sure. So what you can see on that slide is really on the right-hand side how we set up the entire project structure, which is not too much maybe of a surprise. It's quite a typical project structure from a TUI perspective. So we have, and that was really important, it's crucial for the success of this project, a very strong, dedicated TUI organization around this project, a strong project team where TUI actually does the entire project management office, making sure that in the headquarters within TUI Group Business Services, as well as in the various companies, because we are aiming for a global rollout over, I don't know, more than 200 entities, we have dedicated people actually taking care of this project. That's one important point. Second point, and Benjamin alluded to that, and I'll move to the bottom of the slide, we have SAP as kind of like the system integrator. So really doing the implementation, doing the rollout, doing really the system integration, setting up everything according to the requirements that we have defined. And we as PwC, we're making up the third side of the triangle, being the business integrator. So the role of the business integrator, especially in that project, is to kind of like keep everything together, to make sure that we have a translator between what are TUI's requirements from the business side, and I think Christian said this very nicely yesterday morning, saying, no, it does not really, it's not enough just to implement a system as good as it probably is. It really needs to be aligned to the processes and to the business purpose that TUI would like to achieve here. So that was like the moderating role that we are currently playing in that in this project. And I would like to showcase that on three specific examples that, just click.
Let me do it.
On three specific examples where this was especially important in this project. What you can see here on that slide, left-hand side, is the definition of a target operating model actually consisting out of three circles. Benjamin said you need, of course, a bunch of people in central, in the regions, to operate a system after that. Of course, you have your business processes, and Benjamin said, like, what is about to change? This is a fundamental change in the terms how TUI Global Business Services will be operated in future. And third, of course, we have a new technology coming in. And where the three circles intersect is what the target operating model is. And when we actually kicked off this project, and as always in a project, there is that one time where you try to find each other. We found out that this target operating model was not very well defined. So deliberately, we took what I think was a great decision. We paused the project for a month. Really go back to the drawing board and make sure that the target operating model, what we would like to achieve, what we would like to push forward, is well set out. Everybody understands his role. SAP has a clear picture of what is to be implemented. TUI knows exactly what to expect from the system. So that was really a good push forward, also taking the risk that we're not going to make the timeline for the rollout. Secondly, and Benjamin briefly spoke about the very heterogeneous landscape FI-wise. Also, TUI has SAP Steward in place, which is covering most of the FI transaction. There are a ton of other systems. And at least for the Steward, also there is a ton of standardization already on the way. The Steward system still has not made the move to S4, but we're implementing an S4 system. So you just need to make sure very early on in the project that once we implement something new, that you do not block anything out, maybe in 2 or 3 years of time. And that was important to make this happen. And lastly, and I think I speak for a lot of treasurers and practitioners in the room, every treasury is unique, but no treasury exists in isolation. There are tons of other projects. I see Katja Stein here, very esteemed colleague of mine, just implemented IFRS 9 hedge accounting within SAP, within TUI. There are tons of other projects in finance, there are tons of other projects in treasury. And so the role of the business integrator is really make sure, kind of like a steward, that we do not hit walls, where the walls are, maybe kind of like shift some walls, make sure everybody understands what the role is and that we can move forward as quickly as possible.
Okay, all right, thank you. Then let's having a look at the project approach and success factors out of, let's say, our perspective. Project approach, like Peter has already, let's say, lined out. We have a TUI group project management. We also have, let's say, the PwC Germany team as advisory partner or business integrator in the mix. And then we have the SAP implementation guys also all working together. And all together we want to implement this in-house bank and payment factory. And yeah, so like Peter already outlined, the first, let's say, target that we had is really to have this TOM as a guideline so that we can see where we are going, what the future processes are going to look like, what maybe a rollout can look like, and to really have something that we can use like a blueprint then for the rollout later on. And also very important, I mean, this is probably a very common approach today. We're implementing only a pilot at the moment. So this is consisting of 3 entities and 1 bank. And as the entities, we choose, of course, the in-house banking owner, which is the holdco. We have, and then 2 subsidiaries from different ERP systems. And that is maybe important to mention. The approach here is to say we are picking out of the many ERP systems that we have, we're picking from the biggest ones, we're picking 1 entity each. So we have covered now 3 ERP systems within the pilot, and we are picking the most complex and biggest entities actually for the pilot, which might be a little bit counterintuitive, but we really said, let's pick them, really ensure together with PwC and the help of SAP that we cover them well, that they're well functioning afterwards, that it runs smoothly. And when we have achieved this, we have a very good basis and blueprint for the global rollout. And that is also something that is important. As part of the pilot project phase, we are already planning the global rollout. In our project plan, it is really one point that we have to address, and we are currently working on this. So what are we going to do after we go live? And actually, we have then, after the hypercare phase, we will start with the rollout of internal payments right directly after. And we are going to do this in waves. We have a so-called alpha wave, where we have the entities in that are sitting on the ERP systems that we're connecting in the pilot. Then we have a beta wave, let's say, these are ERP systems that, let's say, are more or less familiar to us, or where we have lots of control. And then in a gamma wave, we're going to go to all the rest of the, let's say, 230-ish entities that we have in the group. Also, maybe worthwhile mentioning is that we're starting together with SAP the rollout of the internal payments, because this is less complex than doing the external payments. And then afterwards, once we have the project plan for, let's say, the rollout for the other waves, we're starting also to do the external payments and then the payments factory rollout. Timeline is to be discussed. Yeah, okay. This one we didn't want to do because of time. Okay, maybe let's come. Oh, I went too far. All right. Actually, I went too far off. Okay. Brings us to project hurdles and maybe resolutions. We thought it's worthwhile mentioning why this should be common knowledge, but I think it's very good to talk about this, let's say, as often as you can. There are project hurdles and sometimes resolutions that you need to go for. And one of the project hurdles that we really had in the beginning is, like Peter already mentioned, is the managing of the lead time of the project. Now, this came a little bit together when we signed the contract with SAP just very late last year. I think it was the 29th of September, so the very last day of the quarter. And then it was a procurement, let's say, requirement from TUI that we only then afterwards start the tender for the business integrator. And so while we were preparing the project implementation, we were looking for the business integrator, and we then had this, let's say, process ongoing until actually it was more or less the day before Christmas when they signed the contract then with PwC. Then we all went off to the Christmas holidays, and when we came back, actually we met all in Hanover and kicked off the project. But this was then for the first time when SAP colleagues, PwC colleagues, and TUI colleagues came together, and actually they have never met before. And there was kind of a, let's say, like a challenge in the beginning, because we had to align all of these people. They all came with different expectations of what to do, what their role would be like, and what we are going to implement. And yeah, fortunately, we had a very strong, let's say, project manager at our side, but it gave her a really hard time in the beginning to get all these people really working together and to make this a sound and, let's say, comprehensive yeah, project in the end. So, yeah.
Yeah, second thing, and you see this on the top right side, not all that is clear is understood. I think that, speaking from experience in many implementations, You would see people in rounds just nodding, yeah, this is what we understand, this is what we try to understand, but have they really understood this? Yeah, so really making sure that we do multiple iterations and making sure everybody's on board and everybody understands what we are aiming for, what we are trying to achieve from a business perspective, from a process perspective, from a technological perspective, and what is expected in the future processes from the people actually then operating the system is crucial for any success. And really to have this set out in the beginning is one of the most important points.
Yeah. And then maybe also to add to this, even within the Treasury guys, we sometimes have, let's say, misunderstandings, or especially in the beginning. I mean, we were all talking about the same thing. We all wanted, or were talking about the thing that we wanted to achieve. But then in small details, we, let's say, had a different perspective of how it should look like. And this really then were significant differences, and that's caused a lot of confusion. And I think it's really then was really helpful that we then really did in iterations, discussions, even though we annoyed the SAP colleagues probably a lot with this. As a third point, the criticality of stakeholder engagement. That's also very important if you do something like this. Again, this is something that is common knowledge, but it's worthwhile repeating. So let me take the example of the business units. What we did in the beginning is, this is a group project, but it's going to affect, let's say, our business units a lot, because we're going to centralize a lot of the payments that we're doing today. And what we did is we have, let's say, special communication formats where we really include them, where we keep them informed. We have then, let's say, forums where they can raise the questions or maybe even the concerns. And one thing that I really like is that when we do the sprint reviews, we're going to invite all of them to the sprint review session so that they can really see what is being implemented, what is being built, where are we with the project, and how is it going to look like in the future. And this is then something where they can see we are not doing something in secrecy or something like that, but it's actually something, a product that they are familiar with when we start with. So I think this is quite important.
Lastly, the management buy-in. Not a secret at all, but as I mentioned before, we have various projects with TUI in the Treasury organization, in the entire finance organization, and each of you talking to the CFO who just wants to see the big picture and wants to make sure that everything is lined up perfectly, nicely, fits in all together, and then really crafting the right messages to the senior management to ensure that we have this constant buy-in. That's kind of like an art of its own sometimes. But again, that's absolutely important, and yeah, really maintaining that big picture concept to really drive this through, which will be a project over the next couple of years, yeah? And to make sure that senior management does not lose the attention of the importance what we are trying to achieve here. It's not only about, and this is of course what senior management would like to see. Benjamin said this is one of the project goals, to see a financial benefit. This is what the CFO at that point in time is really most interested in, but that we do not lose sight of all the other project objectives over the course of time, and that we really make sure everybody has this vision.
And also to add to this, you saw this from the project structure, but our, let's say, the sponsor of the project is the group CFO, which is kind of important for us. In the steerco, we have a senior finance manager sitting, and also the group CFO is part of the steerco. And it was very important for us that we have this senior management buy-in from the beginning and the commitment that we are able to really do this. And so our CFO is now going out to everywhere and saying, this is a project that is really important, this is high up on my agenda, I want this to happen, and he's broadcasting this in the whole group. And this helps us, let's say, with acceptance of the project. Yeah? So everybody is aware that this has to come. So this is also, when you're talking about management buy-in, this is something that I can strongly recommend to have. And from this slide, critical success factor, let me pick out maybe the first one, which I think is also very important. Staying within the agreed scope is something that is, I think, very important if you run a project like this. If you don't, you just burn through your budget and then without achieving anything. You might feel the temptation to do other things as well. I mean, we're implementing a payment factory and an in-house bank with S4. We could do so many other things, and it could fix so many other problems. But actually, we're cutting down on this, and we're saying we are focusing on this scope, because otherwise you will just blow your budget, and then you have to have these let's say uncomfortable conversations with your sponsor. In my case, this is the group CFO, why you need a budget extension or something like that, and then the project will run longer, and then people will, let's say, actually start to lose interest. The buy-in will go away. You will lose credibility because you're not delivering to what you said to. We always say you shouldn't overpromise and underdeliver, so that is a problem. So really staying within the agreed scope is something, as hard as it might seem and as tempting as it might be to fix other problems as well. Yeah. So this is something that we had really on our agenda. And then lastly, just to, let's say, touch upon this in the last couple of minutes, what are we going to do in the future? With this in-house bank and payment factory, we have now laid the foundation for something where we can actually then move on from to. And then one of the things that we have to do, and this is also something that we learned within the project quite painfully, but the next thing that we really have to do is looking into a fraud and sanction screening tool. Again, we were under the impression in the beginning that we could lift and shift our existing one, but actually due to technical restrictions, this is not possible. And now we have to, let's say, reshape the project a little bit, and then we have to find another one. So going out to the market again and finding something that will connect us to Swift. And then from on there, we are set really to expand cash management and maybe into other functionalities to make this a full TMS one time and replacing all the other legacy systems that we are having. Yeah, and with this, thank you very much for your attention this early in the morning.
Are there any questions in the room? I'm ready to come to you with the microphone. Perfect. Oh, okay. Someone is quicker than me.
I saw you had business integrity screening in scope, yeah? But did you already implement it, or is it the next phase? Because I would like to know how smoothly this implementation went, or if you had challenges. So on the business integrity screening.
Not sure if I get the question, but the project is ongoing.
Yeah.
So we started in January this year. We're currently at the end of the realize phase, so we are having the sprint reviews at the moment for the last sprint. And then the aim is to go live with the pilot in October. And until now, everything runs kind of smooth. Yes.
Yeah, and BIS is in scope already, yeah.
But your question was around specifically the
business integrity screening.
Business integrity screening. I think that is the part, you mean the fraud and sanction screening, something like that? And this is the part that Benjamin alluded on the last slide. Something where we kind of like needed to shift the scope a little bit, finding out that the current tool that TUI is using is not really fit the purpose of the system we are kind of like bringing in. So we adjusted the scope somehow. We'll kind of like do a rethinking on that, and then while doing the global rollout, do that or bring in a new tool for fraud and sanction screening.
Yeah, the extension tool. Yeah, thank you.
Any more questions? That's efficiency of the microphone.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So question, because early on you showed the sort of your previous structure was plenty of SAP, everyone has their own little sandcastle, right? And I think a question to you on the sort of change management side of it, which is often, well, when you're trying to make a change to one centralized system, everyone says, well, my system is not that great, but I love my, it's bad, but it's the one I know. How did you fight against that sort of internally? How did you get people to buy into that it's better for them to change?
Oh, a good question. Yes.
That's an excellent question.
Maybe a little bit referring to the structure. This is why we said we need something that's connecting to every system. The way we are organized is really in, let's say, in streams. So we have a process that is, let's say, Treasury, and this runs, let's say, from the very top, from the whole code down to the, let's say, very bottom of the entity, the subsidiary. So we have, let's say, lots of the ERP systems that I've shown on the slide are actually already operated by TUI Business Services. So this makes change a little bit easier because we are already operating them. Then the other ones, and this is a little bit where we, let's say, touch wood hope for, is when we have this up and running and can really showcase this is working, this is smooth, this is better for the company, and we really have some benefits, then these will follow, right? So they will not have, say, maybe too many changes.
So it's a little bit change management by proving that we are more successful than we have been in the past, which kind of like then is convincing to people.
Yeah.
But again, change management in that project with so many stakeholders involved is, as I said, really a challenge. Yes.
Thanks.
Yeah. Maybe also to add to that, you have this strong commitment that I mentioned. So saying really that the group CFO saying, I want to have this, and everybody has to follow. In the steerco, we have the finance managers from all the segments. So they are aware of what we are doing, and they know that this is going to come. And so we're trying to play this top down a bit, and hopefully this works. And then on the other hand, we're trying to really get the stakeholders on board, because we're going to show them what we are doing. We invite them to the review sessions, we give them a forum for their concerns, and there are a lot of concerns like, actually my system is not bad or my process is not bad, but I got a special rate here, I don't know, locally and stuff like that. And then how will you cope for this then, let's say, centrally? And other bits and pieces, I have something connected to my process that is I cannot get rid of. So you have to listen to these things and then try to find a solution then for that over time. But nevertheless, you have to be clear about that we are going to do this.
We have time for one more question. Oh, there's one. Perfect.
Hi, I saw that in the earlier slide that you actually operate globally. And do you have any challenges in terms of bank readiness on the MX format, file format when you do the payments? And how do you actually overcome that when the bank is not ready for the MX format?
Format-wise, that is, the pilot is set up to connect to one bank at the moment. That is a bank that we are currently working together with, and we have the format for the payment format. We already have in one of the other systems, so we make this more or less a copy and paste and try to achieve this. And one by one, then we are then onboarding other banks. And we will then always follow the same central process, introducing the format, testing it, and then going off with the next one and trying to shut down the others.
Thank you very much. Well, then it's my pleasure to thank you for that amazing session. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much.